Well, hello, Year 5. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it since we are now well into our summer holidays. I hope you're having a fantastic time so far. So, before we go any further, I just want to make it very, very clear this is all completely optional. Feel free right now to close this down and go outside and play and have fun. You are totally entitled to. However, I'm looking outside now and it's raining. So if you do want to hang around for a little bit, I'm just going to go through a little project that you could do over the summer, ready for next year. So I did this last time we were in year 5, and the idea is we want some really cool stuff to put up on our science display at the start of the year. We will be starting with our unit on Earth and space. So I've got a few ideas that you could do to help with that. There's about 4 different options for you, and as always, golden stars for everything that we put up, and there may well be a treasure chest or 2 for anyone that really blows me away. So, what are the options? So the first thing you could do is a map of our solar system. Okay, so this would be like a 2D representation, maybe on like an A3 piece of card or paper, something like that. So what would you need to include in a map of the solar system? Well, first of all, you would need the sun. After all, the solar system is named after the sun, and the whole system beyond it is going to include the 8 main planets. So really, you can't have a map of the solar system without the sun and the planets, and they're on the screen here in order. You've got the 4 inner rocky planets, and you've got the gas giants a bit further out. You will probably want to label them so we can tell what they are. You might want to include some extra information they haven't done on here, but you could certainly maybe put how big they are, how far away from they are, something like that. So beyond the sun and the 8 planets, what else could you include? Well, you could include the dwarf planets. We all love Pluto. There he is, sat on the outside. But part of the reason Pluto is a dwarf planet and not a main planet is there's actually quite a lot of dwarf planets. We've got Ceres in here, much, much closer than Pluto. It's actually in between Mars and Jupiter. You can see Eris there, just a bit further out than Pluto. And actually there's almost an uncountable number with finding new ones in the Kuiper Belt quite regularly. So you might want to include the most famous and the closest dwarf planets. You could also include the large moons. So on this map there, they've got our moon, but actually Jupiter and Saturn have some pretty significant moons. In fact, Jupiter, the biggest moon in our solar system, is Ganymede. Jupiter's moon Ganymede is actually bigger than Mercury. So put Mercury on there, maybe give Ganymede a shout out as well. The asteroid belt in between Mars and Jupiter. If we're doing a map, it's a pretty significant feature on our map. And also the Kuiper Belt, which is a huge collection of rocks and planets and dwarf planets and things right at the edge of our solar system. So you may well want to include the asteroid belt and the Kuiper Belt as well. Other important things to consider if you were doing this map would be the order of the planets. And they're on the screen for you, so no excuses. That's something we'll want to get really confident on as we go through our unit on Earth and space. And also have a think about the size. So this map here is not to scale. So the size they've got of Earth compared to Jupiter is way off. Earth's way too big or Jupiter's way too small. For example, Jupiter's red spot there, I think you can get about 3 Earths into that spot. So as you can see, you wouldn't get 3. It's way bigger than the red spot on there. So have a think about that, and it'll help you with the scale of the planets and the sort of sizes we're talking about as we move through our unit. So if you fancy taking it to the next dimension, you could do something like these. You could do a mobile that hangs from the ceiling. You could do a 3D map, as they've got there, but you could do a 3D model of the solar system. So some of the things will be the same. Have a think which planets you want on there. Possibly just the 8 main planets and the sun. Again, have a think about the order. So this version, they've done like a line, so they've got it in order. If you're going to do one of these more sort of circular ones, make sure that Mercury's the closest, Neptune's the furthest away, etc. The size and the colour is probably the 2 other main things to think about here. So the colour's really interesting. Obviously, if you're gonna paint these, colour them. The colour's really interesting because it gives you an idea of what the planet's made of, what its atmosphere is. So Uranus and Neptune are going to be sort of blues, greens, turquoises. The sun wants to be yellow, orange, that sort of colour. Size-wise, don't worry too much, probably less so than the 2D model, about getting the actual scale correct. You are limited on what you can find to make a sphere, what spheres you can find to use, and also even just ones that you're allowed to paint on and are easy to paint on as well. So don't worry too much that the size isn't as to scale as the 2D one, but try and make sure your biggest spheres the sun, your smallest spheres Mercury, etc. Again, you probably just want to label them so they've got the names on, but you don't have to do too much more than that if you don't want. And this kind of design, if you're going to have a backdrop, is a great opportunity to do, stars, galaxies, things like that in the background. Certainly last time we had lots of glitter and spiral galaxies, which looked amazing. Other people, though, just had it hanging off like a coat hanger or a piece of wood, and then we can hang them off the ceiling, which looks really, really nice. So it doesn't have to be wall-mounted. It could be something we hang from the ceiling, like a mobile, that sort of thing. Both those are quite big projects, though, so if that's something a little bit smaller, you could do a fact file. So I've pulled up a couple of ones off the internet on Mars. So what I would say about this is, don't just get one fact file off the internet and then rewrite it. If you're going to do it, I would get 2 or 3 different ones, look through them, pull off the interesting facts, and make it your own, the facts that you found interesting. You could do what this first one's done here and compare the facts about Mars to Earth. So, for example, they've looked at the orbit and they've drawn a little map on there. You can see the sun in the middle, and then you've got Earth's orbit is 365 days. So that's 365 Earth days to go once around the sun. You can see that circle there's Earth's orbit, and they've compared it to Mars's orbit, which is 687 Earth days to go around. So nearly double for Mars to go once around the sun than Earth. So a nice little comparison there. And then by having 2 or 3 or more fact files, you can actually fact check the fact files. So here it says a Mars year is a Mars orbit, a Mars year is 687 days. Well, this one here says exactly the same thing, so you can be quite confident then that's probably accurate information. And it'd be interesting if you did find some conflicting information. You can think about why is that different and sort of delve into that. But yeah, pick a planet, something that interests you. It might be Jupiter, it might be Mars, it might be nothing about Neptune, and it's the furthest one away, and it's really mysterious, and you might want to do something on that. The final thing, which isn't something we did last time, but I think actually is quite appropriate, quite current, you could do a fact file, do some research on some new space technology. It's quite crazy, actually, even in the last 2 years, the new things that have happened. Obviously, we've talked about how recently the James Webb Space Telescope, there it is in all its gold-plated glory, that's just gone live in July. We're getting the first pictures beamed back every day, every week, every month next year, probably the entire time you're at school. Hopefully, we're going to get new amazing pictures back from the James Webb Space Telescope. So you might want to do some research into how much it cost, why it cost so much, why it was delayed, and already, what it's found out, how it's changing our understanding of the universe, our galaxy, our solar system. So you could do the James Webb Space Telescope. The other thing that's really interesting that's happening more and more now is that you've got Elon Musk's SpaceX and other companies launching rockets into space more and more. So there's a picture there of Elon Musk's Starship rocket. Doesn't look too exciting, actually. I thought it would look fancier than that. But when you look, I suppose, at how big the people are stood next to it, it is pretty impressive still. And SpaceX, their rockets are really interesting, because they're designing rockets that can take off and land, which means we're going to get a lot more use out of them. They're a lot more affordable. Think about this. If you went on a plane on holiday, you flew to Spain, when it landed, they threw the aeroplane in the bin. That's basically what we used to do with rockets, which are far more expensive, but they were single use. They would use them once and then they couldn't use them again. We're now designing rockets that can go up and can land. So again, you could look at the technology, the speed, the size, the cost, the power of these rockets. There'll be loads of interesting information. And you could compare the other companies that are doing Blue Origin that Jeff Bezos is doing. You could even compare some of the other companies' rockets as well. Finally, you've got to give a shout out to Hubble. James Webb's very exciting. It's new and it's shiny and it's bigger and better. But actually, the Hubble telescope's been up there for decades, changing our understanding of the universe, taking the first pictures of black holes, the first ever deep field of the universe. In terms of actual information and pictures and data that's out there, the Hubble telescope, which is still up there and still alive, would have lots of information that you could use for some research for a fact file as well. So a few different options for you there. Just anything that you find exciting, go for it. You could do more than one if you want. I don't mind. But yeah, just something just to get you up and running, ready for next year. So I won't keep you any longer. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your holidays to listen. I'm going to leave you now with a beautiful picture, a deep field picture of James Webb Space Telescope. Remember, this picture is the equivalent of a grain of sand of the night sky, and every single one of those little dots, not the big bright star-shaped ones, they're stars, all these reds and yellows and browns, they're all galaxies. Each of those have got hundreds of billions of stars around all of them. Maybe out there's some alien children doing a project on our galaxy right now. So I will see you all in September. Have an amazing holiday, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with. So take care and goodbye for now.